the spring statement by Rishi Sunak this week was all over the newspapers, obviously, and the media. He seemed to be suggesting that he was helping people out through this difficult time by reducing fuel duty and raising the level of national insurance threshold, and also cutting income tax later on this year. So that's my COVID voice going. But we don't really know. I don't quite understand what the alternatives were to this, and I'd like to find out more with our next guest, our special guest, Prem Sikka. Are you there, Prem?
Hello, good morning. I'm here.
Good morning.
How are you?
Have you got COVID yet?
Not yet.
Right, well, you can't get it from the Zoom, just so you know, and you'll be fine. Yeah, the spring statement was pretty much slated by the media for not addressing the cost of living crisis. So that, I mean, I'm sure you'll agree with that. But I'm interested to hear what you think about the windfall tax. Would that have been the answer to all this?
Windfall tax certainly would have helped. Let me just give you some numbers. SSE, which is an energy company, provides details of provides a breakdown of the energy bill. On that, assuming that the energy bill before the forthcoming rise is around £1,200 a year, the producers of oil, gas, and energy were making a profit of about £43 per household. Now, it is forecast that by the end of the year, the average energy bill is going to be close to £3,000. Out of that 3,000, the profit for oil gas companies will be £1,717 per household. Now, what people forget is that the cost of producing energy has not changed. So energy workers, oil gas workers, wages have not tripled. The cost of shipping has hardly changed. So what has changed is the selling price in a market which is dominated by a handful of global corporations. That has changed. And as a result of that, so the profit they'll be making from each household on average in the UK increases from £43 to £1,717. Now, if you clawed some of that back, that could certainly cushion people against the energy price rises, but that isn't by itself going to dissolve the cost of living crisis. So the cost of living crisis is really the neoliberal economic policies followed over the last 50 years. For example, in 1976, when we had strong trade unions, and even going to the university was free, the workers' share of the GDP, that is the total wealth that we produce, was 65.1%. That is how much went to wages and salaries. Then just before COVID, that percentage had declined to 48.7%. Just think about it. Workers' share of GDP declines from 65.1% to 48.7%. That decline is unmatched in any other industrialized country. That is a massive decline, and more is on the way. As we have heard, P&O workers being replaced by agency workers at lower wage, 0-hour contracts, fire and rehire. So people are in a desperate plight here. People haven't got a buffer to manage the decline. Forget about the rich people. The median savings, average household, so the median savings in the UK are about 12,500, and the bottom 25% of households have only savings of about 2,100, which means they are one month's paycheck away from destitution and starvation. And Rishi Sunak has done absolutely nothing whatsoever to help ordinary people. Now, just to give you some sense of what the government's been doing, Strictly speaking, tax policy should be used to help people. But we have had a reverse kind of socialism here. So the poorest 10% of households, this is all according to the government's official data, ONS data, the poorest 10% of households pay 47.6% of their income in direct and indirect taxes, but the richest 10% only pay 33.5%. Now, the tax system is not helping people either. It is basically taking money away from them in a whole range of ways. And in the Lords, I have drawn ministers' attention a number of times to some of the facts, get absolutely no response. So, for example, national insurance is going up for everybody from April, but the recipients of unearned income don't pay any national insurance. So you get capital gains, which are taxed at a lower rate, in other words, between 10 and 28%, whereas earned income is taxed between 20% and 45%. These are the marginal rates. But the recipients of capital gains, where there are about 260,000 people who received about £70 billion in capital gains, they pay zero. So they use the NHS and they benefit from social care, but they pay zilch, absolutely not a penny. Now, if you were to tax capital gains at exactly the same rates as earned income and force the recipients to pay national insurance like everybody else, that one reform alone would raise £25 billion a year extra. Now, that 25 billion can be used in a whole variety of very, very useful ways. And that is not the only anomaly. Look at the world of dividends. Dividends are taxed at a lower rate than earned income, and the recipients of dividends pay no national insurance, though the government, for some reason, is going to charge them extra 1.25% from April, but they don't pay the 12% basic national insurance. So our tax system is incredibly regressive, and it is loaded against the ordinary person. And as all good socialists would do, they would note the language used by the government. So when you look at the debates from 70s and 60s, people talked about tax as a way of redistributing income and wealth. Now the Tories have shifted the language. Every time they talk about tax, they say tax is going to be used to pay for things. I don't remember anybody telling us tax was needed to bail out bankers or give them £895 billion of quantitative easing, which is what they handed out to speculators. But now they tell us this. And when I've raised in the House of Lords questions about the plights of ordinary people, you get a response like, high wages are inflationary. I don't remember them saying that when chief executives were collecting 200 times the average wage. I don't remember them saying that when oil, gas companies, banks, supermarkets are making huge amount of profits, which are really windfall gains. So somehow those things are not being considered inflationary. But when people just want to survive, oh, that is inflationary. I refer to that because we got to understand their language games. These are the language games they are actually playing in order to confine working class to negative spaces. They want to portray the working class as though it is going to damage the economy. All people are doing is asking for simple survival, nothing else. But even that is now becoming impossible, really, Crispin.
Can I do, I mean, I'm going to move on to Paula Peters, who's from DPAC, who'll describe how it will affect people. But Prem, what do you feel the Labour Party has policies on this that can get people through the cost of living crisis, or is that windfall tax policy just like a sticking plaster?
I think windfall tax is a sticking plaster. If you really, I think we got to think about an equitable distribution of income and wealth. And at the moment, no party is really offering that. You can't increase workers' wages without stronger trade unions. You can't increase the workers' share of the GDP without a much, much higher level of living wage. and you basically have to rebalance the relationship with capital. So what's happened is, as the workers' share of the GDP has declined, that has gone directly to capital. Now, there's absolutely no justification for this. Capital, we are not investing anymore. So if you look in terms of investment in productive assets within European countries, UK is third from bottom. Only Poland and Portugal, I think, come below the UK. So when we have had record low interest rates, inflation rates, companies haven't gone out of the way to invest for the simple reason they know that ordinary people haven't got the capacity to buy goods and services. So if you're going to continue to depress people's capacity to buy goods and services, you can't revive the economy. That is a simple truth, which the Tory chancellors just don't seem to be capable of grasping. So I'm sorry to say Labour is not really putting forward what I would regard as appropriate policies. It is simply just putting a plaster, and even that is not really enough.
Right. Well, I hope that we can get you to be Chancellor by the end of the year. We'll start a campaign up for you, Prem, because you've got far more ideas than anyone I've heard anywhere else. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. Okay.